Welcome to the 60th episode of the Mayor's Mixtape. I'm Haley Sue Robinson, Director of Public Affairs for the City of Pueblo.
I'm Heather Graham, City of Pueblo Mayor.
And I'm Brian McCain, Chief of Staff.
And we're in a new spot, Mayor.
We are. It's weird.
And we got a new sign,
Yeah.
Mayor's Mixtape. So want to remind the listener, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Buzzsprout, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, subscribe, share. And thank you for listening. You can also catch us on local channel 17. And if you have questions or topic suggestions, you can email us mayor@pueblo.us. Last night we had a city council work session and we had a couple of presentations. One in particular was the legislative wrap-up. Brian, I thought maybe you could give us a little bit of summary. We heard from Capital Success Group, our lobbyist team, last night, and normally it's maybe like a 5 to 10 minute presentation. It was a little longer because legislative session ended, but thought you could give us some information.
Absolutely. So the city and city council took position on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bills this last session. And honestly, out of the 7, we were successful on 6.
Okay.
What our position was. So I'll just go through those. So the first one was HB 26-1071, and that was the local government vehicle ID systems on interstate highways. What this would do would allow speed cameras basically on the interstate. Mm-hmm. So right now you can do that, but there's tons of permitting hoops to jump through to get it, and this would have made it easier. That one we supported, and unfortunately that one was killed. So that was the one we were not successful on. Then we had Senate Bill 26-129, which was mitigate impacts of tax increment financing. So this was the PURA bill, or Urban Renewal Authority bill. What this really would have done was make it more confusing, add different levels reporting to urban renewal authorities. I think every municipality across the state was opposed to that, and we were too. Mm-hmm. So that one was killed.
And it was going to change the years.
Yeah, from 25 to 15, right?
Yeah. There was that, and there was a reporting requirement and something with the amount of time to report something that just wouldn't be possible to do and efficient. So luckily that one did not pass. The other one, Senate Bill 26-70, was ban government access to historical location information database. This would have prohibited the government agencies for accessing databases of historical vehicle or individual data. This is the flock bill that we heard about. Mm-hmm. The city was opposed to that, and that one did not pass either. So that almost got there, and at the last minute it was killed. So that was a success. HB 26-1037, that's banned government purchase of personal data from a third party. This would prohibit law enforcement and government entities from purchasing consumer data. So you hear that and you think, oh, you want to go out and buy somebody's data that they have off of Facebook. Well, this is, LexisNexis, things like that we use, that our legal department uses, that district attorneys use, that police use. Mm-hmm. We were opposed to that, and that one was postponed indefinitely, so thus dead. Did not go forward. Another one was HB 26-1313, adjust requirements to statewide affordable housing fund, or the Prop 123. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we supported that, and Pueblo played a big role in this. So over the summer, even before the session, Melissa Cook, that works for the city, her and I and a few other people, we went through stakeholdering process, as they like to use. But really what it was the Prop 123 formula. When the voters passed it, with Pueblo, it didn't really fit. Yeah. And it would prohibit us from accessing those funds. So obviously we supported that. We worked with the legislators on this. Every week we had a meeting on it for our input. And it impacted mostly Pueblo and another community. I think it was Greeley up north were the two big ones. So that one did pass. We're waiting the governor to sign that. So he's expected to sign it in the next day or so, hopefully. But it's non-controversial. It was, you pass something that's a good thing and it doesn't quite work. How do we fix it so it works for everybody? Senate Bill 26-71, the use of surveillance technology by law enforcement. This was the SAFE Act. This establishes Statewide rules for law enforcement use of all surveillance technology requires warrants for facial recognition, restricts license plate reader data retention and sharing, and mandates agency-wide compliance policies. So this, again, a lot of these tie into our real-time crime center, and these bills would have been a roadblock or basically defeated the purpose of our real-time crime center. So we were opposed to this. That was another one that was postponed indefinitely, thus dead or killed. So that was a win for us. And then one that we didn't take an official position on, but Councilor Dante was really interested in it, and some of our city employees as well, is HB 26-1202, Strategy to Reduce and Prevent Homelessness. So this requires DOLA to develop a statewide homeless prevention and resolution strategy, and allows local governments to create jurisdictional homelessness authorities and permits real estate documentary fees to fund affordable housing. Again, we didn't take a position, but I think most of the council and everybody agreed that this was a good thing. That was passed, and it's waiting signature from the governor. And what that'll do, I know you hear that, it's another study of a study of a study. How do we fix this? But realistically, there hasn't been a statewide study on homelessness and some of the policies or ideas to deal with homelessness and unhoused in our communities. So this will allow for DOLA to do that and work with the communities, and maybe pass some things on a local level that can impact homelessness and the unhoused and help them out. So those were the 7. So overall, 6 for 7 in what we wanted to see happen. So it was successful. There was a lot of talk about the budget and how they went into 3 major budget cuts, and it ended up being, I think, 2.8 billion that the state ended up cutting. And this impacts everything. You're going to hear a lot about mental health and some of the funding for that. Medicaid going into the summer is going to be a big topic. So there are cuts to Medicaid, mostly on the caps, but that ties into the federal funding as well as the state funding on that. So even though the session is over, they still have a lot of work to do this summer to figure out what to do with that.
Sure.
That's it.
Okay. Pretty good. Thanks for breaking it down into layman's terms instead of just all the numbers and us not really knowing what that is. So it's helpful when we localize it and we understand what it means for Pueblo.
I think it's intentional sometimes that they make a bill hard to read and understand. And nobody will say, how does this impact you? So the best way, I think, to deal with this, whether it's with council, the public, is to break it down and say, okay, it says this is what it really means, and this is how it's going to affect you or impact you. Like the real-time crime center bills. You read that, you don't understand what it says. But if you go up to somebody like our city council and say, this will basically gut our real-time crime center, and we've been very successful with our real-time crime center, so much that other cities such as Denver, I think Douglas County, Castle Rock, those areas are building their own, and they've
even
actually
Colorado
came down
Springs.
and they've looked at ours. We're the model for this. And with crime as it is, this has really been impactful for Pueblo. So these bills, yes, you say this will take away our ability to fight crime, basically, in the city of Pueblo. And of course, they're going to be opposed to that.
Well, and I think another thing that's really interesting about our real-time crime center that's kind of like a misnomer is folks think that our real-time crime technicians or our dispatchers or our police are just sitting and watching cameras all day long, waiting for us to do something illegal or make a mistake, when really they don't have time for that. And a lot of times how we use the cameras, the license plate readers, is for investigation or in the middle of a crime that's currently happening, so that they can speak to our officers and give them the information that they need in real time during, a pursuit or a traffic stop or something like that. They're not sitting there watching park cameras to see if I used my blinker or not, or if I stopped all the way at the stop sign. It's not like that. And so when you tell people how the real-time crime center actually works, it makes more sense that we need to keep it that way.
Yeah, there was a really good example that Chief Noller brought up, and our lobbyists did too, was that there was a homicide in Pueblo, and the victim was completely unconnected to the person that committed the homicide. If one or two of these bills would have passed, we would not have been able to find out who the criminal was that committed this homicide, because they had to go back in that data, almost 30 days to figure out who this person was. I know at least two of these bills that we could not access that data past a certain amount of time. We couldn't just go look for, say, a vehicle. It would have taken weeks, if not months, to get the proper things together to look for this. But again, that data would have been destroyed because it was over the time limit that they put in their legislation. And again, they had to go back, I think, almost 30 days to find this truck and somehow connect it to this crime scene. And that's how they busted the bad guy. And if this would have passed, we would not have been able to do that. Yeah.
Great. Good summaries. Thanks, Brian. Okay. Also last night at council, we had a very comprehensive presentation by our finance director, Danny Nunn. He broke down some finance terms, kind of just, I guess what I would call like a cheat sheet, maybe for codes, for project numbers, even just like the process of what it looks like to begin a project with purchasing. I thought that was really good information.
Good presentation, yeah.
I think one thing that was interesting for me is, we have some more seasoned counselors who still felt like that they had learned some last night from our finance director. I guess just from my curious perspective, how hard was it to decipher or to learn all those terms and project codes for you when you first started on council? Did you ask a lot of questions, or did it feel straightforward?
I mean, when I was on council, the administration was not as forthcoming to city council, so we never really got in the weeds of this is a capital, this is
these are like enterprise
we're
funds. These are
funds that, this project was never complete, right? We had a lot of cleanup when I became the mayor. And so I think the first time that I really started diving into all that is immediately when I was elected.
When you took this position.
Trying to figure out how we were going to solve the budget shortfall. When I was on city council, none of that was ever given or talked about, or the budget presentations are not what they are now. There wasn't invites to budget meetings. I had a budget committee, but we just reviewed non-departmental requests, so it was much different. So I'm very happy the council is engaged and that they want to learn and know. And I think it's important that when staff or myself is talking to them about a capital project or a wastewater improvement project, or the difference between enterprise and general funds, that they know what we're talking about. And I think that Danny did a really good job of presenting that in a way that not only council but citizens can have a little bit better understanding about the dynamics of the city's budget and all the bank accounts. And
I also could appreciate the fact that Councilor Dante asked for it and just said, hey, I need to be able to talk to folks in my district and to citizens when they ask me questions, that I can tell them the difference between an enterprise fund, that WW means wastewater, that the AN means annual project. I think my favorite part was when Danny talked about the project number 58. And the way he remembers that is because of Von Miller. I was laughing. Normally council's very serious. Finance is a little bit dry. So I thought that was funny that, he said he remembers outside projects, or is like the outside linebacker, Von Miller. I was like, okay, well, now I'll never forget that. So that was a new one. I think I talked with our city attorney, Carla Sykes, about that too. She was like, yeah, I'll never forget. Outside projects is 58. That's our project code. So, even as staff, I think it was helpful for us. It was very granular, but easy to understand. And so I think that's helpful for folks. And I thought he did a great job last night.
He got lots of props.
Yeah. I thought another thing that was very helpful, too, was Councilor Hernandez asked for an update with where we are in the budget. And so then President Aliff pointed out that we have the transparency portal.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of folks don't realize. You can go on the city's website every day and look exactly where we are. You can look at the adopted budget for 2026. You can check out our transparency portal, asking the questions about what's being funded. You can get the answers right there. Mm-hmm. You don't even have to call us and say how much money. You can look and you don't even have to believe us.
Yeah.
So I thought that was helpful too. Mm-hmm. Was there anything else you wanted to add about finance or budget?
I don't think so. We're going to be having our budget town hall starting next week, so we can have the community come out and ask questions and give comments on how they want their money spent.
Sure. And I think we've seen a lot of questions about what does the budget look like this year. And I think what's interesting is we're getting folks who maybe haven't paid attention before now are asking questions. And this is a good time to see how the budget's being spent this year and then give the feedback. What do we want it to look like in 2027? But like I said, that information is available on the website. You can check it out for yourselves, and there's no hiding how the money's being spent. Mm-hmm. So
I thought it was interesting too. Councilman Hernandez asked the question, what if it isn't something that's in our budget? How does it get paid?
Yeah, how does it get appropriated?
Yeah.
Take
it back to council.
Right. Well, and Danny mentioned how we've consolidated projects or closed projects out, and then that's how we've been able to potentially pay for new projects. And so sometimes when you see those big ordinances and it's like CI and then there's like,
$5,000.
Yeah. And then, CI and there's another project code and there's like $697. You're like, wow, these are like weird chunks of change, but it's because that's what was left over from the project. So now you're combining these funds to pay for a new project. Mm-hmm. And so, sometimes those long ones, you're like, what the heck is in all this? But now that he explained all those terms, it's like, oh, I understand. Okay. So it's good. Speaking of upcoming events, so you mentioned that we have town halls coming up. Your first one is Wednesday, May 27th. That'll be at the City Park George Williams Banquet Hall. If you don't know where that is, it's at the City Park Administration Building, 800 Goodnight. And there's a hall right in there. You walk right in, and we'll have presentations, questions. Then we have another one, June 2nd at Rawlings Library, Brett Kelly A Room. Tuesday, June 9th at Lucero Library. And Thursday, June 11th at the YMCA Community Room. And if you're wondering why they're in so many different places, there's one in each district. So you don't have to live within that district to attend one of the town halls. So if I'm in District 3, but I can only attend the District 1, I can go to that one. And they will be live streamed if you can't make it in person. And there'll be lots of opportunities to ask you questions.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else we need to know, Mayor?
I don't think so.
Okay. I think we should tell the listener to be safe during Memorial Day weekend. Celebrate safely, but also very exciting weekend for the city. City Park ride's open. The pool's open.
I don't know if we're going to open the pools.
Oh, really?
It's too cold.
Well, yeah. I
mean,
mean,
don't get the water up to a certain
that's true.
temp, then we can't. So it depends on these next couple days if it rains.
It's like 50-some degrees today.
Yeah.
I don't really know if this is swimming weather.
Yeah, I think the water has to be, I just learned this last night. The water has to be at like 74 degrees.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if it's not, the health department.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like
a regulation. It's like a regulation. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe not. Stand by.
So
Stand by on the pools.
Stand by.
But kiddie rides will be open. And this is kind of like the unofficial kickoff to summer. So it'll be a good weekend. But everybody be safe for Memorial Day. City will be closed on Monday. And we'll be back on Tuesday with the city council meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great. I want to remind you, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Buzzsprout, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. You can email us topic suggestions or questions, mayor@pueblo.us, and we will see you next week.